Hi there. This is the Bitcoin Design Guide Jam session number. Does anybody remember? I don't. It's number
18.
18, already at 18. And it's probably the last one for this year. And it could potentially have another relevance because we're at milestone 11, which is about adding Lightning content to the payment section of the design guide. And after that, we may consider that Lightning addition part to be complete, like that first bit. I think afterwards, there are some case studies, maybe some glossary stuff, like some small stuff to maybe update and revise. And I feel like the major construction would be complete. And maybe we'll have that done by the next Design Guide Jam session in January. It'd be super cool. How are you feeling about that? Think we can get it done?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'd say that Lightning is kind of like, I feel like is kind of done once we get through the payment section, the first part of it, and the big part after that is I just feel like the restructuring to the guide. That's what's going to make it incredibly useful for people.
Yeah, and that restructuring ideally is also hopefully involves lots of user feedback. I know Connor mentioned that he talked to a few people, they found it useful, and then we can just redo this whole thing because we came up with that structure, what was it, a year and a half ago? And a lot of things have changed due to everybody's awesome work here. So do you want to just go start from top to bottom? So Liam and Rutusha, hope I spelled that, pronounced that correctly. So what we usually do is we just kind of go over open issues, open PRs, just kind of talk about what everybody's doing. And then, we talk about what everybody needs and what we're going to do next. And
nice.
That usually covers it.
Wicked.
And so I shared that link for the roadmap that Pav put together. It's in the chat. So if you click that one, you'll see it in your browser. And currently we have 3 open milestones. Milestone 8, Alexa, the open design page revision. You made good progress on that one? I feel like it's close to review. Stephen, you reviewed it. I reviewed it. Did somebody else review it? Feels like it's just a matter of just a little bit of conversation, iteration, and wrapping it up. Or are there any other major concerns around it or thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you, because it's like the first review that I get, and it's kind of nice to see what everybody thinks. And even just the little improvements are really useful. The only thing, and your suggestions of additional things like the videos and the Twitter and all that stuff, it's something that should be there. The only thing that I would say is that I always have an issue with user experience, because it comes from loser experience kind of thing. And I know that there isn't an ideal way of putting it. Like some people
is it a glass half glass empty type of thing? Full empty?
Yeah. So I really do wish there was a better word. I know I had customer experience sort of. And I know that some people feel like some products being open source may not feel so much like a customer. But I feel like it's a little bit more like a person rather than thinking of the origins of the word. Because for some reason, I think if we read it in some other way, like if you did like just read it like loser experience, would you really want to use that? I don't know. That's the only one I have an issue with.
Do you, everybody else here, do you read, is that something that comes to mind, the word loser experience, when you see user experience?
Not personally. I mean, I agree that the word becomes dehumanizing once we say it enough, once we like spend all day talking about user experience and we're like, users should do this and users should feel this way. And yeah, I mean, it feels dehumanizing when you use the word over and over again, but I don't associate it with the word loser.
Maybe it could be just people's experience. Just
yeah,
avoid
I
it.
would probably feel a little bit better. And you're right, even if people don't know where the word comes from, it feels a little off somehow, like not as human,
So, is that where it actually comes from?
Yeah,
It is?
It is.
I'm not
It's,
familiar with this story. What is this?
I'll share the link, but way back when, well, not way back when, but when admins or, you know, in the technology sphere, and I may have some of the details wrong, but they had this way of identifying the people who didn't know the technology. And so it came from the idea of being a loser. And that's where the user experience comes from. And when I heard that, it feels like a negative thing. You know, it feels like you're not thinking of the person, or you're not thinking of them as deeply as you should, you know, or as caringly as you should.
Yeah, this sounds familiar. I feel like there might have been a Slack conversation about this a long time ago. It's probably a link we should pull up.
Is this a bit like the pleb thing, where it's kind of a negative thing, but it's kind of it's re-owned and reinterpreted and turned into a cool thing?
Well, the meanings of words change over time, but still.
Okay, cool. So that's a good one, but maybe it just requires a small tweak. So feel free to do what you're comfortable with there. And that's the PR. Yeah, Liam or so, or Rutusha, or anyone else, feel free to also give feedback on that one. I'll see if I can share the link to that PR in the chat. Okay, cool. So next one, milestone number 9, that has one thing for Bosch, funding a wallet. I think did he create a PR and then took it down and post another PR?
I think so. I do know there was a PR before, and I think it's changed a lot from the original one because we left a lot of feedback on it. So
yeah, looks like Pavlonex was right on it and left some feedback. And yeah, I think the funding a wallet, that was the thing in the original version of the guide. That's where it was about, well, how do you get some Bitcoin in your wallet? Pretty straightforward. But with the Lightning edition, it's about, well, funding is a bit more complex because you need to have this liquidity, and then you require Lightning services and other stuff. So it's become from a simple, like, go to this service and buy some Bitcoin, or, you know, send it from some other wallet, to like a more in-depth user experience thing and technical description. So it's a little bit trickier. And then, of course, yeah, it still needs to serve the old purpose. It also needs to serve the new purpose. So yeah, feel free to leave feedback. Looks like Pav was the only one so far. I also
yeah, I'm still in progress reading that one. I'm about halfway through it.
Then Alexa, onboarding landing page.
Still in progress.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Then it just says to do. I'm going to change the status to in progress. And then,
yes, please.
Cool.
Thank you.
But do you have any questions? Do you want to talk about anything there?
Not as of yet. I think I'll have to wait till the next, well, it may not wait till the next meeting. It may just be a PR that I pull up for review. Yeah.
Okay, and then we get to the big one, milestone 11. And there's a bunch of stuff. 3 things done, 5 things to-dos, 3 things in progress. That's the big one. So I'll just start from top to bottom. Lightning Services addition to the Designing Bitcoin Products chapter, which Bosch is working on. And that is actually in to do. There is a PR for it. Which has already 22 comments. I'm sure with so many comments, it's probably close to being done.
Is this maybe the one you were thinking of, Christoph, that got like the name changed or something?
No, Lightning Services was always something separate, I think.
Because apparently I've reviewed this and I don't even remember reviewing it. I'm pretty sure this was like had a different title on it originally, and because I remember we had the whole funding a wallet page, and then somebody was like, "Oh, we should put Lightning Services on a separate page." Doesn't matter, But okay.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I feel like the payments page is changing so much that we're going to need to put a round of iteration on the whole thing, just to make sure it all kind of makes sense together.
So, but yeah, it looks like there's a lot of comments. So I guess we just need to check in with Bosch about this PR and see if he needs any help with anything.
Yeah, Bosch, there was, I think a week or two ago, Bosch, there was a time where in a few days he put down a ton of stuff, and I was like, what's going on? It's going to be a long list. So I think it'll take some time to get through that, which is great. I hope it just is not stuck with anything. Okay, next one was adding personas from the Bitcoin UX research by Patricia Estevao into the getting to know your users again.
I think Pablo next just said that he will work on it this week. I don't know if that's the one he's referring to.
Okay, yeah.
557?
557, yeah. That's a good one. And Alexa, I feel like you said something a long time ago about the open design page that it would be good to put some quotes or some real people or I don't know, something in there that links to real people. I feel like you've brought up that sentiment a bunch of times. And I do wonder if that research could be linked there too, as like a reminder somehow that, you know, you're directly interacting with real people there with real problems.
You mean in the open design page?
In the open design page, yeah. I don't know exactly where, but I just made that connection from something you mentioned a long time ago.
Yeah, maybe it could go into, you know, where it says like things that you could do. I don't know. It could go maybe in a couple of places, like as a suggestion of like where it has the Bitcoin icon kit and the UI kit and maybe user personas.
Yeah.
That would be a good place to add it, or a note on it somewhere about what Bitcoin is. I'll think on it.
Awesome. And then the next one, adding guidelines for LN send payment confirmation UX. That's really just like if it takes longer than you expected, how do you handle that smoothly in the UI so people don't get impatient? And I just commented on that one, and I'll basically cover that in the sending Bitcoin page where it's already covered, not in as much detail as Steve was asking in that issue, but I'll just try to put that in there. So that's, I added that to in progress. Next one's units and symbols page. We just ticked that one off. Payment section landing page. Bosch ticked that one off. Then Steven, transactions. You pushed something there earlier, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I opened a PR earlier. It was that Google doc that, you know, we were talking about on Slack a week or so ago. So it's now a PR with a deploy preview everyone can look at.
Yeah, make sure to look at it quickly because Pafanex already approved it, and he has a quick trigger finger with the merge button. Okay, but can you just summarize that one real quick?
Yeah, I mean, basically the transactions page, you know, as it exists currently on the guide, just kind of talks about like it talks about the sending and receiving of payments with Bitcoin, just from a high level technical overview. Not really talking about the user interface so much, just about like what under the hood is actually happening. It's just kind of to help the designer, you know, understand at a high level what's happening. So it all talked about on-chain stuff, and I added kind of a high level overview of, you know, how a Lightning payment works. So a lot of the content is you know, remains unchanged. I just kind of added a new section that gives a high level overview of how the Lightning payment works. And then some accompanying graphics for that.
Okay. And was there anything crazy?
I don't think there was anything crazy. You know, you left a couple of comments on my my Google Doc, and so I tried to address those in my PR. But I mean, it seemed like a pretty straightforward page.
Okay, so just some reviews, and then it should be pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Then let's see. Where am I here? Sending Bitcoin. Okay, I just turned that into a draft earlier, or I removed the draft status. And it is, as I mentioned initially, turned out to be true. It is kind of overwhelming between, and I feel like it's easy to design for the optimal experience, scan a QR code, press pay, done. But I think payments can initiating payments can happen in a million different ways. And by default, the Lightning Network is not that great because it requires somebody to send you an invoice, and then you respond to it, and they expire. And then we have all of this other stuff on top. We have AMP invoices, which seems to be, it requires certain feature bits and seems to be kind of a brand new thing that's not implemented everywhere. And then we have LNURL and Bolt 12 offers and Lightning addresses. And they all cover, like if they all work and they're all implemented, it'll be so smooth. But they're all kind of in like a half state of like maturing and getting implemented across the board. And I had a hard time identifying like some of the limits of some of those. Like there are certain invoices that expire. I think AMP invoices are set to expire after a day, but they can also be static. And then Stephen, we had the conversation around Lightning invoices where if you reuse them, that it's not good for privacy, or somebody could take that money because whatever pre-image has been revealed or something like that. So there are these intricacies, and I bet I don't know all of them. So this subpage about payment request formats, I feel like needs a ton of input from people like you, Johns, because you're an expert on those. And then all the other stuff too. Like the main page just deals mostly with the user flow. And I'm sure there can be a ton more detail and iterations there. So I would be super happy to get feedback on all of that. And Bosch is not here, but I think the sending, and because he's working on receiving Bitcoin, and I'm pretty sure we also need to put our heads together. Maybe we'll each first publish those PRs that we have, and then revise them again to make sure they go well together. So the mockups look the same and use the same words, and a lot of sending stuff is related to receiving stuff. So yeah, but feedback would be super awesome there.
Yeah, I'll give you.
How do you feel about all these payment request formats? Is it easy? Is it a mess?
For
Do you
me?
love them? Do you hate them? Just anyone.
Yeah, there are a lot, but ultimately, sorry, fellow Jitsu, you were gonna say something? You going?
I didn't realize there were that many intricacies with Lightning payments, in that you couldn't use the same address twice because of the security. I need to read up on this so much more.
Yeah, I will definitely give a thorough review to that page today or tomorrow, Christoph. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like it is complicated, and we're at a situation right now. I feel like the industry hasn't really coalesced around a standard.
Yeah.
So I mean, it very well could be that once Bolt 12 gets approved, it solves a lot of problems, and people don't need some of these other ones, or maybe that's AMP, or maybe people just things like Lightning address and LNURL have just gained so much traction that that's the standard. But I don't know what the industry is going to pick. That's the problem. And I think sometimes when we're trying to approach this from a design perspective, we're like, it's very easy to get wrapped up in like the well, what is technically possible in the present day, and what would the ideal user experience be?
Yeah, and see, that's where I differentiated on the page between two things. One is you click an invoice somewhere, which can be super smooth. It just shows you like, hey, somebody asked you to make a payment, pay, and you're done. But but then with LNURL, there can be an image and some description, and then it can ask you to withdraw from the address also. It doesn't necessarily have to pay. But then if you get into editing addresses, like what is even an address? Like as a user, it's nice to think that, well, Johns has this one address, and whenever I need to send him something, I'm just going to send it there. So a Lightning node ID can be considered an address. A Lightning address could be considered an address, an on-chain address, but technically also a static Bolt 12 offer. But it's not really an address, it's kind of an invoice that you can just keep paying to it. And then it's just a mess.
So the model that I have for these like payment request formats is that you have some which are like invoices, and these are kind of like an invoice and meets like in regular accounting is something that you typically would only pay once. Anyway, like ideally it's like here's an invoice, pay it once, it's thrown away. Addresses fall into that category as well as Bolt 11, right? Then you have like address generators. Like invoice or address generators. That could be a BTCP server URL. It could be a Lightning address. It could be a LN URL. It can be, what do you call it? Bolt 12. They just generate invoices for you, right? They generate payment requests, essentially. So that's kind of how, like, I break it up. And who's to say? And relating to the data formats, like the metadata that they have, they all pretty much have a who and a what, right? Those are kind of like label and message on Bolt 21, BIP 21, right? It's like you want to know who it is, and you don't want to know what it is you paid for. So that's kind of like how I break those down. So yeah, I'll have a look at how you have the invoice format set up and right.
What
Awesome,
about
thank you.
Sorry. What about something like NFC? Is that something I should go on that page?
So this is how I split it up. So they're the payment entry points, which means how that invoice makes it into your application. And that can be like you manually enter stuff, you have a previous saved contact using whatever address, you copy paste it, you click a link, you scan a QR code, or you hold one device to another device. And that would use NFC, but could also use Bluetooth probably. So that's kind of the entry points, and they can be really diverse. You know, if you have a phone, I have a phone, we pay each other, it's one thing. If there's a website with a QR code, it's a different thing. If something in the real world and I scan a QR code, like there are all these diverse entry points. Once the information is in your device, then the application needs to somehow figure out, well, how do I present this to the user? And sometimes all that's entered the application is like an address, a Lightning address, for example. But sometimes it's an address and an amount, and then I can just click pay. Sometimes it's like an address and amount, and it tells me, oh, this is going to expire in 10 seconds. Quick, confirm, super fast. But then like that's the point where like, what does the user see then in there when they get in their application? And there's information coming in, which is different from when you manually initiate a payment. That's when you personally go to your pay button, click the pay button, enter stuff, and then press it. And that's kind of a linear flow that we have full control over. And then after that's done, you know, you have your fees and you have your review and approval, and then you have your transaction processing, and then, you know, ideally a success or error. But yeah, at the beginning, like those entry points, they're just really broad. And then it kind of needs to become more specific. And then the user presses send it. The user, the person.
I kind of like what Johns was saying a second there of trying to break things down into not so much like invoices and addresses, but invoices and invoice generators. Because like if you think about it, like, yeah, a user can keep reusing the same on-chain address, but I don't think we really want to recommend that. Like part of a good UX is not just like making people feel good and happy that they're using the app or whatever. Like part of it's also like you kind of got to put some guide rails in place and make it so that they can't make a mistake that is going to harm them, right? So it shouldn't be, to me, like good UX shouldn't be recommending people reuse on-chain addresses. So if we think about it from that perspective, then an on-chain address does become like an invoice, like Johns was categorizing a minute ago. You only pay if somebody hands your business an invoice, your business pays the invoice once. If somebody gives you a Lightning invoice, you pay the Lightning invoice once. If somebody gives you an on-chain address, you only pay the on-chain address once. So those are all different types of invoices, right?
Yeah.
And then everything else would just be types of invoice generators. And then LN URL would fall into that. Lightning address would fall under that. BTC Pay Server would fall under that. Things like Bolt 12 offers and AMP, I think, would actually kind of fall under that in a sense. I'm not going to claim that I understand AMP well enough, though, but I think a lot of those things would fall in the category of generator.
Yeah, I think AMP is actually a tricky thing because it's technically a regular Lightning invoice with a few extra feature bits, and it can be static. So if, let's say, here in this example up here, there's Jane Richardson, and she contributes to the design guide, and I'm just gonna save that QR code so every month I can send her €5 or something, and that's an AMP invoice. And I just want to save it so I can just regularly, say thank you via sats, not euros. What am I even talking about here? So yeah, the details are where these things just start overlapping, and that's the tricky piece. Well, and in that case, we could say, okay, for the user, we allow them to save Lightning invoices to contacts, but we don't allow them to do AMP invoices or whatever. Like we can say like in this situation, allow the user to save it. In this situation, don't. Like we can come up with guidelines if we can, create clear scenarios there. And I think that would be beneficial if there is logic, we can discover it and formulate it.
Maybe there could be a paragraph that talks about that, like when static is a good thing,
Yeah, that's where this whole page and the other thing here, I put this thing about examples at the bottom. The only thing legible to a normal person is a Lightning address. It's the only legible thing, like if you're presented with some type of string.
There's also kind of like verification that a verification component of these, I've been calling them identifiers because I guess that's what it is in a PKS PIC system. So you have like these cryptographic ones, right? And then you have like non-cryptographic ones, so like a Lightning address, like it's like not necessarily cryptographic, right? But like a technically not even LN URL ones are cryptographic, even though they use batch 32. A Lightning invoice or a node ID, those are kind of like cryptographically provable in a way. Or Bolt 12. What's the other one? Another one that's not there is BIP 47. The stealth addresses. It's only using the stealth addresses. Paynims essentially. But
yeah, that was discouraged from use though. Maybe we can put that at the bottom. That this was there's a spec, but it was discouraged.
Yeah, but that's an example of like those kind of like cryptographic identifiers versus like the just the nice human readable ones. So it's like in terms of like readability and provability, those are like two other categorizations that you can make for those identifiers as well. Even LN URL, but it could just be a URL. So it's like, how do you prove that? Then you have to prove like the ownership of the domain name. But how do you prove a Lightning invoice, Bolt 11? It's like, well, there's a checksum in some of them, right? There's a checksum, so then you can kind of like figure out if there's no.
Yeah.
Why were payments discouraged?
Mainly because it was using a lot of on-chain data. Because it was using like on-chain data to like reconstruct your wallet and stuff.
So it isn't as secure or as private. I mean, as private.
Yeah. There are some privacy concerns with it as well. Yeah.
Hey, Daniel.
Sorry, I'm late.
Okay, all good. We just went, Daniel, we just went from top to bottom through milestone 8, 9. 10 I closed out earlier because there was nothing in there anymore. So good job on that one. Somehow it got completed without us noticing. And then we just went through 11, and we're now at the sending Bitcoin page where I'm just making everybody try to fix my problems and tell me what to do, how to improve it. Yeah, this confusing mess, what I find a confusing mess of all of these address payment request formats here, and the trickiness of describing them. Yeah. So anyways, we can talk about that, but I feel like we spent a bunch of time on this, so we can also move forward on the next one, which would be coin selection, which is great timing because Daniel, that's one's assigned to you.
Yeah, I think that's already got merged.
Oh, it did?
Maybe we haven't updated.
Yes. I think it's already merged. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, it wasn't many changes. It was just a few light mentions. But coin selection isn't really relevant to Lightning anyway, so it was just a clarification that it's only in the funding transaction of a Lightning channel that it is relevant. And I think we've been talking about maybe demoting this page anyway to a slightly less important place in the guide.
Yeah. So for the time being, for now, on the sending Bitcoin page, I left it as a subpage for coin selection, and it's just linked to at the bottom for advanced options, in which there is also Lightning routing options.
That sounds good.
Yeah, Daniel, I think you already looked at that one and gave some feedback on it. So yeah, we could move it or we can leave it here. We decide later in that restructuring, I guess, I suppose. Well, cool. Next one, receiving Bitcoin, which, let's see, where are we with this? So there's one comment here. I know Bosch has already spent a bunch of time on this one, but I'm not sure he's posted anything. Anyone else maybe aware?
Not sure. I haven't heard anything about it.
Did he post something in Slack maybe?
By the way,
Dominic says there's a work in progress Google Doc.
Okay, Puff.
And that he
Okay.
will send a PR soon.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yes, sounds good then. What is it for him? Like 2 a.m.? So makes sense he's not here. Okay, and then transaction privacy. John's, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm still in research mode for this one. I'll be honest. I only started writing like Saturday or so. It's a bit of a tricky page. I was on the fence of whether to keep it, because like all these things on this page are talking about like on-chain privacy, except for like that bottom part, where it talks about like designing for privacy more in general. Bosch had this suggestion we changed the entire page to payment privacy. Kind of makes sense, but then I started to think, is this the kind of thing that we break it into its own section completely? But that's a bit more of a radical change. Anything?
Yeah. It reminds me in the Ellen book reading group, we also there's a whole page about privacy, Lightning Network privacy. Did you look at that one?
Yeah. I've read it. There's so I think there's some other parts that I wanted to kind of explore. For instance, like coin join opens for channels, I think in the book it talks about the mixing of like UTXOs, or like the reuse of UTXOs when you kind of like open a new channel and stuff. The difficult thing is that we don't really have any design patterns to, like, we don't have many solutions for one, and we don't have any like design patterns to like reference that are similar, unless we kind of like build more of the infrastructure on there. So, you know, like whereby the transaction privacy says like don't reuse addresses, don't do this. It's like very action, like it can be very actionable, and it's like, oh, if this happens, then you can like, you know, you can do a coin join, or you can do this or that or whatever. It's very difficult in like applying the Lightning content to that. Now, also, if we're assuming like people are using LSPs and stuff, then like what are the privacy things for there? And in this mobile context, we are assuming that most people are not like, you know, like connecting to channels and stuff, because we don't have any other pages about, you know, connect. Well, at least in the payment section, it's like connect to the channel first or whatever. Or maybe I missed it, but yeah, yeah. It's a little difficult to write this
that
one.
makes sense. I think the joint market team's working on that pay mix into Lightning channel open transaction. They're trying to streamline that, make it just a one-click thing. But yeah, I mean, I guess for the far out future stuff, maybe just post like more of a problem statement, and that this is evolving. Keep your eye on this spot. Set a reminder for when it's done. And then, you know, maybe people will actually read it and try to join in. Maybe those are things where we can just kind of, maybe also, I feel like with the payment request format stuff too, maybe we can put notes in there that, you know, this makes it tricky to develop wallets or whatever. And then these things need more research, and any support or help is welcome, or something like that.
Yeah, there's more on like the network level privacy stuff. This is kind of like why I was thinking about like if it could be its own section and stuff. There's stuff on like network level privacy, like Bosch suggested like some more content about Tor, for instance. What happens when you're using a Lightning, like making a request to a Lightning address server, right? Those people are, you know, knowing what wallet you're coming from, etc. I mean, it's not a problem now for privacy, because like people are just kind of like I'm sure there's not people like trying to figure out like what wallets people are coming from and trying to get any other additional information like IP address and stuff. Maybe not yet, but eventually it might come into something. But yeah, I was thinking of turning this page more into something like, how do you design for privacy, and then like breaking off like the on-chain aspects and the Lightning aspects. And I know I've been one to like talk about merging the two for the longest time, but this is one where it really breaks. Yeah, because there's like a lot of stuff for on-chain, not that many for. It's more like an opinion piece for the Lightning stuff. But then there are some like general privacy things that people interested in designing for privacy could start thinking about, like how to adapt adversarial thinking in your design process, for instance. And those kind of.
I think all of these ideas about expanding the material on how to design for privacy, they all sound great. But the way I would approach this particular page in this particular exercise of updating the guide for Lightning, I would probably, like Christoph said, you know, start a discussion about how to do that bigger piece. But then it looks to me like we could just add another section on this page, like a paragraph almost. I agree with you that it's kind of piecemeal, you know, this and then that and then this. It's kind of all different approaches already to privacy on that page. So I would just kind of minimum approach here would be to add a paragraph heading, which is, you know, privacy on the Lightning Network. And then you explain what's relevant and what's not relevant in terms of privacy there, and then we come back to the bigger piece. That would just be my recommendation here.
Yeah. From the second paragraph that you have on this page, like everything else below it is all relating to on-chain.
So you could do a paragraph before that. That's
that's what I have.
Related to Lightning, and that is everything else is on-chain. Anyway, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, so the topics that I have is correlating UTXOs for channel opens, node advertising channel capacities, probing and denial of service attacks for your node. They're not necessarily UX related things, but also Bosch has some other suggestions. Relating to, let me pull it up. The invoices, the information that's stored inside of invoices, which I think makes sense because you expose some node information on those invoices. And
it sounds like the first step could be to just create what's it called, the hack, the Google Docs alternative that you like, Hackpad. Why don't you just create a Hackpad for that paragraph, and then we can start talking about some actual content.
Yeah, like I said, I started on Saturday on this. I was just doing research still.
So here's a random idea, and this is something I was thinking about for the goal for 2022. We kind of have roughly 50 pages in the guide. We could every week have a reading group. We cover one page, we get a bunch of people together just on that topic, and that's when we just kind of push it forward. So even if some of the pages that we know right now, we haven't spent a lot of time or this or that we get like a 1 week dedicated time where we can just, focus on it. And I feel like some of the things in our overall Lightning edition, there was definitely some pages where we thought, okay, we're just gonna quickly add stuff there. And I do hope we can come back doing some activity like this. I think it'd be cool, where we take that time for every single thing and work through it systematically. By the way,
we could have a sprint. When we're done with the Lightning stuff, we could have designate a sprint just to privacy, or some other topic that we want to kind of fix or improve.
And the part that I like about that too is because if you have 1 hour about this page or another page or the whatever page we're talking about, afterwards we can put it on YouTube and you have like a 1 hour discussion of a certain topic. Like it's really great additional material. Because I did see that the recordings of the Lightning Book reading group, they got disproportionately more views than some of our other stuff. So maybe people really like that video content, and having like these focused discussions, I think would be cool. So anyways, but the point is, I guess, figure out, like, put a scope on this one and then, work on it in the future, I guess. I don't know if that helps or not. But the other thing I wanted to say here, and in the background here, these are all the public Lightning nodes in Porto. That's where you live, right, Daniel? So that's a privacy thing here. I can see, okay, there's, I don't know, maybe I can figure out who's Gold River Watch or Oliveira LN with their $10,000 locked in channels. That's such a weird privacy thing, but you can do this, right?
Yep.
I mean, there are hidden nodes and hidden channels and all of this stuff, but so weird.
Yeah, there's still a lot of correlation that you can do, especially with like automatic coin selection happening. So even if it is like a private hidden node or whatever, you're still having this on-chain footprint, right? And once you start mixing up those UTXOs, then you could determine that node is like, these channels belong to the same node essentially.
And being a bit of a noob here in the node scouring page, is this IP derived, or is it some sort of self-reported?
This can actually happen just like on-chain. You could just do an on-chain analysis.
No, the location.
Oh, the location stuff. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Right, Christoph?
Not sure. I assume it's IP based. So anybody using Tor might already not be in here.
Well, the Tor people are going to be listed on the Lightning Explorer if they have public announced channels. You may not be able to determine their location because they're going over Tor, but they're still going to show up in the Lightning Explorer.
Yep.
And sometimes you'll see stuff where people like, even though they're behind Tor hidden services, they're going to put like their screen name as the name of their Lightning node. And it's like, well, obviously, I mean, this has a probability of being the person with the Twitter handle of the same unique name. So, I mean, these kinds of things are huge privacy concerns.
Yeah, but I think if you have a node on Phoenix or so, they don't actually show up here because they're all through private channels and they're leaf nodes and
Correct.
other stuff. So it's interesting, but there's definitely the capacity to totally out yourself here with the opportunity.
Do you think
Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely worth mentioning.
Do you think that 2022 should be the possible privacy chapter? I'm thinking now that I'm hearing all of you and all of the issues in it. You think that should be the focus, or one of the things that gets primary focus, or are you hoping for something else? Any of you?
I mean, I think the good thing is that each of us can have our own focus. Like we can collaborate on a lot of things, and every one of us can also have something that they focus on, whether it's privacy or accessibility or sweet animations or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I know, John, you're payments and privacy, right? That's something you're really.
Yep. Yeah. The privacy on Lightning, as I said, though, it's really, really tricky because we're trying to come up with like some possible solutions and try to figure out like all the ways in which Lightning breaks or erodes privacy. And on the surface, we talk about like Lightning being like really great for privacy. Well, in terms of like those payments that you're making, like yeah, those back and forth payments between the channels that get routed through, yeah. On the surface, that's really good. But then like we see chain analysis now saying that they're going to be offering products and services on the Lightning Network. So what does that mean? Is that they're going to continue to, have like we're going to be routing through chain analysis nodes, right? Just like these Lightning Explorers that, the blockchain explorers that they were also running or funding and collecting data from. So it's difficult because we still don't know ways in which we need to combat it. Wasabi has a grant out right now for such research on like the infrastructure kind of side. We have to come up with design patterns as well that can also help users capitalize on this. It's gonna be difficult and interesting in the next coming months, I guess.
Yeah. Now, I guess the main thing that we need to put in the design guide is that any important decisions users should make, and any time where anything that they should be really aware of, that they should be sensitive with, like not reusing addresses. That seems like a no-brainer. That should be kind of, should be just made as easy as possible, and people also kind of aware of. And other things like paying an invoice twice, you can just not allow it. Seems also pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
and then we can go deeper for.
But like like doxing Daniel just now, and like that kind of demonstration, it's
Hold on, that wasn't Daniel here.
No, I am happy to report I'm not on the list.
But
I did
or
find
are
a
you?
list of
Are you just saying that?
It's got about $1 million in his channels. So,
but But that's the other thing, right? It's like regarding privacy, people would make assumptions. It's like, oh, Portugal, these are the amount of nodes that they are. Even if you aren't on that list, people might make assumptions and they try to correlate information, and that's when even if you are private, like there are like security. There are there are things that we need to think about our security. For instance, um, on the Lightning Network, if it's advertising these things.
It's actually a lot worse than I thought, right? Because if you click on that Oliveira one there, you actually see all these channels and who is connecting with. So you can build a pretty good picture of what's going on.
Yeah, and then
if you know your way around the Lightning world, right? It's
you can.
This is pretty strange.
Yeah. Ideally, you should have two nodes set up. Like one public and then like a bunch or one private. But like, who knows how to do that? And then how do you run that on mobile?
No, or you call your node chain analysis secret node, and then they'll think like you're part of them, and they're just not gonna do anything.
Yeah, that's what you did on your. If you go search for Munich, Christoph, the top result
is chain analysis.
Is it's some other crypto websites, but anyway, I mean, there's obviously a ton of information here that doesn't feel like it should be as public as it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But yeah, I think the solution to this probably has more to do with how you set up nodes, and that should be made more private by default somehow.
Yeah, I mean the difficulty from an engineering perspective, though, is that you need to be able to form a channel graph of all of the nodes in order to be able to route payments. So like, there's no way to route payments over the Lightning Network without having kind of a vision or a map of what the nodes are and how much money they have. I think that the emphasis, barring some engineering breakthrough, is that nodes should remain anonymous. Like, it's one thing if you're a large company to put your company's name on the node, but not all nodes should be correlated with people's name. That's okay to me if I can see the entire Lightning Network, as long as I don't know which node is which person.
Yeah.
Is it also an attack surface? I mean, does it carry extra security issues if somebody knows it's your node? Like, even if it was...
Yes.
DOS attacks.
There's DOS attacks and probing attacks. The last chapter of Mastering Lightning, or the one before the last, or no, I think it was the last, goes into it, just all the different attacks you can perform. The way I break it down in my mind is that with a blockchain, everybody on the blockchain is at risk of having their transactions tracked, both in the past and moving forward in the future. So everyone is kind of equally at risk. Whereas on the Lightning Network, you run the risk of being targeted. So like your node, if somebody wants to figure out how much money you have and figure out the balance of your individual channels, they can, do these kind of probes to figure out, to try and target your node specifically. So I think it's like everyone's at risk on the blockchain, but individuals are more at risk on Lightning, I think.
Yeah. And if your IP address does get come out and you're running a node at home, and then it's also advertising how much money that you have, how much capacity that you have,
yeah.
I mean, I think it's amazing that we're having all these conversations. On the other hand, I don't get at all how it's like some whatever people, they're like, oh, check out my profile picture. It costs like 200,000. And it's like, what?
Well, then,
how does that make sense? Like, we're just being so careful here. And on the other hand, there's like, who cares?
Well, then they post a tweet the next week about how everything got hacked and their MetaMask seed phrase, someone swiped that and they've lost all their stuff.
Exactly.
So weird.
Yeah.
I know we're running up on the hour real quick. I just wanted to go ahead and do a quick shout out. I see Ratuha in the audience. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right, but I saw you had an issue opened. So I'll paste that in the chat right there. She opened an issue to start a new header for the homepage. I thought it looked really nice. My one piece of feedback I left is I just thought that some of the text should be a lighter color for better contrast. But otherwise, if you need any help getting a PR set up, just reach out to any of us and we will help you get that set up.
Just a simple, I need help, and we'll do it.
Yeah.
Super easy.
That's really nice. Cool. I hadn't seen it yet.
Okay, yeah, cool. Anything else then about milestone 11? Seems like it's just a lot of reviewing, and then we can kind of slowly tick things off. And then, I mean, we'll just come back to these things anyways. I definitely know that once Bosch is done with receiving Bitcoin, I'll have to review things again. Take a step back, and then take a fresh look. Always helpful. Yeah, any other thoughts or?
Do you just want to switch to the issue tracking overview for the Lightning guide? You know which one I mean. If you go to issues and how are we doing here? We're getting to the end of the year and we're getting to the end of the list.
So we're not going to get case studies done for this year, but payments will. Multi-units and symbols, that's pretty much, there was nothing there. Yeah, I think we'll be able to, if we just like focus on helping each other review things and tick things off, I think we'll be in good shape. And we can get that done. And I feel like we could almost consider the Lightning edition done at that point. And then maybe in the new year, we can do 2 tracks. One is the guide, the overall restructuring. Another one could be just the case studies, which I think beefing up the case studies was also part of our conversation around restructuring to make those more prominent. So maybe we can tackle all of that at once.
Yeah, the case studies might need to be rethought in at least some of them might need to be rethought in with Lightning. It's not just like a slight rewrite with a few words here and there. It might be a redesign.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've had a few conversations around it that once we're done with payments, it's a good time to step back and just kind of reconsider this whole, how we onboard people, how people come in, we welcome them, and also how the whole thing is structured to not just have, hey, here's a list of 50 pages. Figure it out.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I mean, anybody else want any help, need any help, wants anything else for anything?
Just an idea I was having, just jumping back on this course made me realise how much I need to reread through the whole design guide and how much appreciation I do have for all you guys for to put this together because it is epic. I think as I'm going through it, when I start picking up more and more lessons, I think I'm going to start doing some sort of mini animations to sort of put out on Twitter online to sort of give people like bites of information and then direct them towards the design guide after the short animation is done. So I was just wondering if, because who does all the designs for like the page headers and banners and everything?
That's been a mix of people.
All random.
Anyone wants?
Really?
If you look at the source for a lot of those pages, there's usually like a little mark. You have to go to the actual source. I don't think you even see it on GitHub to the raw file of each page. There should be a link at the top that is editor's notes and illustration source. And that's when you can find the Figma file, usually Figma file, I think, for all of the graphics.
Sorry, wait, how do I find that? That'd be amazing. How do I find the source?
If you're for any, okay, let's pull it up here real quick. So we go to code. Where are we? Guide. Let's just go to onboarding, manual backup. And then I click raw. And in here, of course, this is the one that doesn't have it.
I got one that has it. I just pasted a link. The descending Bitcoin. That link I clicked shows it.
Payments. Send. We go to raw. So here it says page artwork created in Figma, header illustration was sketched first, then designed in Adobe Illustrator. and there's a Dropbox and Figma files.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And you can also, Christoph, if you go back,
That's on GitHub.
yeah, you can also click the little carrots instead
These
of
guys?
raw. Yeah, click
Source
that one.
blob.
Yep.
Okay.
And that will give you like
Okay.
line numbers and all that.
Okay, awesome. So here, that source blob button.
Sorry, I lagged behind it completely. If I'm on GitHub, at the moment I'm on GitHub and I'm just on the milestones page. But if I,
Okay.
where
Here's
would I
another
go from
trick.
there?
So technically, every page at the bottom should have a link called edit this page down here, which should take you to GitHub, to that page code. And then you can just press display the
Magic.
source blob.
Ah, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, edit this page. Then there's that. Then see
I
the
totally
code.
forgot about that one until now.
That's
It's actually
amazing.
useful.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I just thought as I'm going to read through this again, because I feel like I've come to a book club, but I haven't read the book properly.
So I felt like in the lightning book reading group, except that I just didn't. I read it and I didn't understand it.
And I think just as I sort of have small epiphanies or light bulb moments or snippets from all your guys' work that just sort of really hits home, then I can make a quick 20-second animation, get it that little snippet over it in maybe a different way, and then maybe try and direct more people towards the guide. I think that's the best place I can help at the moment.
That's super cool. Yeah, we had a bunch of discussion around animation, but we just never got to it really because we were just busy, like just getting the basics.
Yeah, I mean, like the what you're all trying to do, I can imagine that's taken up most of, if not all, your time. So I can definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, maybe you and Alexa also want to chat because she heads up the Twitter account. Then you can just chat about how you want to post it, how, I don't know, what works, what doesn't work, how you want to describe it, whatnot.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'll just drop you a message, Alexa, in Slack, and I'll just fire over whatever I come up with over to you first.
That'd be super cool. And any vector-based illustration, we had some discussion around using Lottie to also display them in the website natively, like as vector animations. That's another thing.
Oh, okay.
Like for example, if we go to the tech primer, there might be things like how blocks get created or so that could lend themselves well, like how transactions get into blocks, like stuff like that could benefit from inline animations potentially.
If you haven't worked with Lottie before, it integrates with AE, so I can talk with you about it sometime, Liam.
Wicked. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I can always rely on you, mate. Thanks.
Yeah, super cool. Awesome.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. Oh, I have an echo. Okay, that's really weird. Yeah, so do get in touch with something that you may need. I also have a couple of things up there with 3D elements, but I don't think I've pointed to Figma files on any of them. So yeah, if you're thinking of something, let me know.
Yeah, I'll drop you a message. Thank you very much.
Yeah, cool. Anything else? All good? Ready to wrap it up? Okay, then I will stop the recording.